The war between Israel and Hamas has spread far beyond Gaza as people worldwide are taking sides in this conflict. In the United States, this is especially noticeable as we've seen near daily protests against Israel from Los Angeles to New York and everywhere in between. And so joining us now in the studio is Yuval David, an Emmy Award-winning actor, filmmaker, news commentator, and activist. He recently hit the streets of Washington, D.C. to hear exactly what people think about this war. Yuval, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me on, Lidao. It's good to be with you here in studio as opposed to remotely as I patch in from the United States.
Absolutely great to have you. And so, Yuval, I want to ask, you're an Emmy Award-winning actor, a filmmaker, news commentator. Why are you also taking on this role as a pro-Israel activist, especially now? Why is it so important to you personally?
I've been pursuing Jewish activism and advocacy truly since I was a young teenager in my early teen years, where I was raised to be a proud Jew, to be an educated Jew, and understanding what it actually means to be of the Jewish people and why I need to not only use that expression never again. Even when I was 13, I said never again isn't enough. It needs to be something positive, like always remember and always take action. Well, throughout my life, I've encountered a tremendous amount of anti-Semitism myself. I've seen hatred and bigotry within other civil rights and social justice movements. The main part of my identity that influences everything that I do as an activist and advocate is my Jewish identity. Now, since October 7th, all of that work that I've done, the battles against anti-Semitism for 15 years in the US and in Canada, have all been amplified because exactly what we're seeing. This was not and is not a war between Israel and Hamas. That's maybe what Israel calls it. Hamas calls this a war between Hamas and the Jewish people. When they killed my own friends, some of whom I have videos because it was shared by Hamas on their WhatsApps and Telegram, they didn't call out Israeli when they killed my friends. They called out Yahud. This is a war with anti-Semitism. We need to battle anti-Semitism wherever it rears its ugly head, whether here in Israel, in the United States, as we're seeing every day, and across the world.
So in the United States especially, you hit the streets of Washington, D.C. to speak with people about this war, about whether they're pro-Israel, pro-Palestine. Let's take a look at the clip, and then I want to hear your reactions to it. So let's take a look at the clip.
Are you Team Israel or Team Palestinian?
Well, I'm Team Israel, but I'm Team for peace.
I just hope everything can get resolved, because it's territory, culture. We should all live in peace.
Are you Team Israel or Team Gaza?
Israel.
And why is that?
Because I think they're just looking for peace. I think they deserve it.
I support Israelis, and I'm very distressed at the civilians in Palestine.
Would you say that you're Team Israel, Team Palestine,
Team Palestine?
And tell me why.
I'm Palestinian.
Is this a war between Israelis and Palestinians? Is this between Hamas and Israelis or Hamas and Palestinians? Like, who is this a war between?
I don't think I want to say anything on the TVs.
Who would you get in trouble with?
Here, I don't know. To be honest, I'm not sure where it's going to go, who's going to see it.
Yeah, I think I'm more Team Palestine.
What opinion do you have about, like, the almost 10,000 rockets that Hamas sent into Israel, and they took 245 Israeli and foreign hostages?
I mean, I really don't know too much of the situation. I don't really know the magnitude of the conflict.
How should Israel respond when it knows that Hamas...
Turn the water back on. They should turn the internet back on.
How much water does Israel provide Gaza?
I mean, my understanding is you've been...
10%. They control what I've learned.
Where's your source on that?
It's from the Gaza Health Ministry, from Egypt, from Jordan.
So why is there no water there?
There is water there, and Israel only provides 10% of the water to Gaza.
Anyway, you see where I stand.
They're surrounded by enemies that want to not just defeat them, they want to destroy them, and I think that they can't let this happen again.
Of course, I'm Team Israel. It's a horrible thing. I think, but it's been an issue for a long time. Unfortunately, it got to this.
Okay, so interesting clip, and I want to hear your reaction. There are quite a few people who said they were pro-Israel, which is nice to hear. Some of the people who said they were pro-Palestinian didn't seem to know all the facts. I mean, so what is your overall impression of this?
Yeah, I think you said it exactly what it is. Many of the people who I spoke with who were anti-Israel or who are anti-Israel and pro-Palestinian or even pro-Hamas didn't have the information. And when I asked them why, with all due respect to them, to just ask them why those are their opinions and decisions, they were not able to back that with any information. One of the interviewees, because we created numerous videos that I can't wait for you to share, were with younger people who absorb their information from TikTok. We know that on TikTok, there is a vast tsunami, a vast ocean of anti-Semitic content, and it's completely outweighing the pro-Israel or the pro-Jewish content. One of the issues that has appeared, especially in these conversations with the people on the streets of Washington, D.C., and this was just a fraction of what we filmed, is so many people focus on the anti and pro. Those who are anti, I'd often ask them, well, what are you doing that's pro? What are you doing that is pro-Palestinian? What are you doing to support the Palestinian communities? And oftentimes, they didn't have an answer to that question.
And so it's really interesting because, you know, the war in Gaza, of course, here in Israel has stirred up very strong emotions. But abroad, it's really stirred up anti-Semitism and hatred and anti-Israel sentiment. You're talking about pro versus anti, strong anti-Israel sentiment in people who are not really connected to this conflict in any direct way. I mean, why do you think that is?
There are age-old tropes that have been passed on from generation to generation. Throughout my life, especially my work in the entertainment and media industries as an actor, as a director, as a news commentator, I would always hear Jewish jokes and comments about jokes about Jewish people as if it was just normal to be able to say that. Yet, the woke movement started as a movement to awaken people to what someone else's narrative is. Hear me and see me for who I am, for what I am, instead of telling me what I am. That and the DEI, the diversity, equity, and inclusion movements, ended up focusing on other marginalized and victimized minorities while excluding the Jewish people. So it is still absolutely okay and acceptable to criticize Jewish people, even from a place of lack of information. What happened since October 7th is we are seeing a groundswell of this flood that's been happening for a long time. Anti-Semitism is not on the rise. It's already risen.
Yeah. All right, well, Yuval David, thank you so much for joining us today in the studio, and we, of course, will share the remaining videos in the coming days.
Thank you so much for having me and for everything that you're doing to share these narratives through the power of journalism to empower our people to know how to have the conversations, to know how to do the representation themselves. We are at a time where all of us are activists and advocates.
Thank you.
Toda raba.